Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I've got something different for you today. 3 stories from America's heartland that'll make you think twice about those peaceful-looking cornfields you drive past. See, most people think the Midwest is just flat land and quiet farms, but the folks who actually live out there, the ones working those fields day after day, they know better. They know there's things buried in that soil that go back further than anyone wants to admit. I'm talking about farmers who dug up something they wish they'd left alone, families who finally understood why their grandparents warned them about certain barns, and people who learned the hard way why some country roads empty out after dark. These aren't stories I made up or found on some forum. These came from real people who lived through absolute hell in places where your nearest neighbor might be 3 miles away and your cell phone's about as useful as a brick. Now look, I've changed some names and locations because these folks have been through enough already, but everything else, the actual events, that's all exactly how it happened. The Midwest has been keeping secrets under those endless fields for longer than you'd believe, and today you're gonna find out why some ground should never be turned. So if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe to GRIMPINE, because I've got more of these true horror stories coming at you regularly, the kind that'll stick with you long after you've finished watching. And hit that bell so you don't miss out when I drop the next one. This happened back in 2019 when I was 32. My name's Michael Chen, grew up in Seattle doing software development, about as far from farm life as you can get. Then my uncle Raymond died and left me his farm in southern Iowa, 240 acres that had been in our family since the 1890s. I hadn't seen him in 15 years. He'd gotten strange toward the end, paranoid, wouldn't let anyone visit. When the lawyer called about the inheritance, I figured I'd sell it quick. But the lawyer said I should at least look at it first. I took a week off work and drove out there. How hard could it be? Should have known something was wrong when nobody local would help with the property. 3 farm management companies turned me down flat once I gave them the address. One guy laughed and hung up on me. A real estate agent went quiet for 2 days, then emailed saying she didn't handle that township. Nobody would say why. The farm was 20 miles outside Prescott, population 800. The landscape out there is flat fields to the horizon, broken up by the occasional farmhouse or silo. During the day you can see for miles. At night the darkness is absolute. No streetlights, no city glow, just black. Uncle Raymond's place sat at the end of a gravel road. 2-story farmhouse with peeling paint, a barn weathered almost gray, and a grain silo leaning to one side. The fields hadn't been planted in 2 seasons, just dead corn stalks and weeds. I got there around dusk on Friday with keys the lawyer had mailed. Inside was worse than outside. Dust everywhere, furniture under sheets, that musty closed-up smell. But the walls, man. Uncle Raymond had covered almost every wall with newspaper clippings, notes, hand-drawn maps, floor to ceiling in some rooms, articles about sinkholes and cave systems, geological surveys with areas circled in red. Notes in shaky handwriting saying, "Don't dig past 6 feet," and 1847 was when it started. A whole kitchen wall had a hand-drawn property map with red XS and "Stay Out" written over certain spots. I figured he'd lost his mind. That first night I barely slept. Old houses make noise, but this was different. Scratching in the walls, footsteps on stairs, something dragging across the floor above me. I kept telling myself it was the house settling, maybe raccoons. But every time I started drifting off, another sound snapped me awake. Saturday morning I walked the property. The fields had these shallow depressions scattered everywhere, maybe 30 of them, roughly circular, 10 feet across, couple feet deep. Some had grass grown over them, others looked recent with dark loose earth. They matched the red XS on Uncle Raymond's map. That's when I found the bone. I was near the southern edge where the cornfield bordered a drainage ditch. Something white stuck up through dirt in one of those depressions. At first I thought it was a rock or old pipe. Got closer and my stomach dropped. It was bone, 18 inches long, thick as my wrist. The proportions were wrong. It looked almost human, but too large, too heavy. Stained dark brown with strange symbols carved into it, letters in a language I didn't recognize. Pulled out my phone to take a picture and had no signal. I'd had 2 bars yesterday, but now nothing. Signal came back near the house. I tried calling the sheriff, but the call kept dropping. Finally got through to a dispatcher who said someone would come Monday, not today, Monday. When I asked about the delay, she said bones turn up in farm fields all the time, probably from an old cemetery, no rush. Something about how she said it made me think she knew exactly which property I was calling from. I spent the rest of Saturday in the barn, found a wooden chest in the back corner covered with a tarp. Inside were journals, dozens of them, dating back over 100 years, all written by people named Chen, my family. The earliest was from 1847, my great-great-great-grandfather when he bought this land. He wrote about how cheap it was, how the previous owners abandoned it in a hurry, how Native Americans refused to hunt near these fields. Thought he'd gotten a bargain. First few entries were normal, good harvests, healthy livestock. Then things changed. He found the depressions, dug into one, found big bones, thought they were buffalo. Then his daughter got sick. High fever, seizures, screaming about things in her room. She died within a week. The night she died, he saw something in the fields, something tall and wrong moving between corn rows. When he went out with his rifle, it vanished. The next journal was from 1889. His son wrote about the family curse, how they'd learned never to dig in marked spots, never disturb what was buried. Said the family had an agreement with what lived beneath the fields. Leave certain areas alone, follow the rules, you can farm here. But someone always got curious or forgot, and bad things happened. Journal after journal showed the same pattern. Someone digs wrong spot, someone dies, SDR. And things happen until they rebury what was disturbed. Uncle Raymond's journal was most recent, dated 3 months before he died. Entries barely legible, handwriting shaky and desperate. He'd accidentally hit something with the plow, unearthed a chamber in the northeast field. Said there were symbols inside that hurt to look at and objects made from materials he couldn't identify. Tried to cover it back up, but too late. Things started coming to the house at night. Scratching at doors, walking on the roof, whispering his name from the fields. Final entry said, I've sealed the chamber as best I can. If you're reading this, leave, don't dig. Some ground is sacred for reasons we've forgotten, and what's buried here needs to stay buried. I sat in that barn reading until the sun started going down. When I looked up, someone stood at the field edge about 100 yards away. Just a silhouette, tall and thin, not moving. I called out, no answer. Grabbed a flashlight and walked toward it. The closer I got, the more wrong it looked. Too tall, arms too long, head shaped weird. When I got within 50 feet, it turned and walked into the cornfield. Not quickly, just slow and casual, but it moved wrong. Joints bent wrong. Every instinct screamed at me to go back. I didn't follow it into those fields. That night I locked everything and pushed furniture against the doors. Around midnight, the scratching started. Something circled the house, testing windows, trying door handles. I grabbed Uncle Raymond's shotgun and sat in the kitchen with all lights on. The scratching went on for hours, sometimes fingernails on wood, sometimes metal scraping stone. Once I heard my name called in a voice like it was coming from underwater. Didn't sleep at all. Sunday morning, everything was quiet. Went outside and found deep scratches on door frames, gouges around windows. Tracks in the dirt everywhere, footprints that were roughly foot-shaped but too long and narrow with claw marks where toes should be. They circled the house dozens of times. I followed them to the northeast field, the area Uncle Raymond mentioned. Found the chamber 30 yards in, marked by a patch where nothing grew. He'd tried covering it with dirt and boards, but they'd been pulled aside. Hole in the ground 4 feet across, leading down into darkness. My flashlight didn't penetrate far. Saw stone walls, carefully fitted ancient blocks, symbols carved into them that hurt my eyes when I tried focusing. Smell coming up like copper and rot and something else. Could hear something down there, breathing but slower and deeper than any animal. I backed away and ran, grabbed my stuff, threw it in the car and drove. Didn't stop till I hit Prescott. Called the sheriff again, got through to a deputy, told him everything. He was quiet a long time, asked if I was Raymond Chen's nephew and said he'd come out that afternoon. Deputy Kowalski showed up an hour later. I followed him back in my car, didn't want to be stuck there. We walked to the northeast field together. He looked down into the chamber with his flashlight for maybe 10 seconds, stepped back and said, "You need to fill this in today, right now." I asked what it was. He shook his head. Said his grandfather had been sheriff and responded to calls at this property before. Every family that's owned this land learned the same thing, and most learned too late. Some places have things buried that predate the farms, predate the settlements, predate everything we know. The Native Americans knew to avoid these places. We're the stupid ones who built on top of them. We shoveled dirt back into that chamber for 3 hours. My back screamed, hands covered in blisters. We piled dirt till the hole was full, then piled more. Kowalski told me to plant something with deep roots over it and never dig there again. Before he left, he gave me a local farmer's number who'd rent the land and work it properly. Said as long as someone followed the rules, left marked areas untouched, the property was fine, profitable even. But if I sold to some corporation that would level everything and dig deep, bad things would happen. I took his advice. Never went back after that day. Property management company handles everything now, and the local farmer rents the fields. He knows which areas to avoid and follows the old agreements. Place generates enough income to keep and I don't ask questions. But sometimes late at night in my Seattle apartment, I think about what's buried under those Iowa fields, about the journals and warnings passed down through generations. And I wonder how many other Midwest farms have the same arrangements, same secrets kept by families who learned the hard way that some ground is sacred and some things should stay buried. I still have Uncle Raymond's final journal. Sometimes I read his last entry, "Don't dig, don't disturb what's here. Should have listened before I ever drove out there. I'll never know what that thing was that, sir. Cled my house, but I know I never want to see it again." This happened 5 years ago in summer 2018. I'm Sarah Volkman. I was 26, working as a rural mail carrier in southwestern Minnesota. Mail routes in farm country aren't like suburbs. You're driving 50, 60 miles a day on gravel roads, stopping at mailboxes that might be a quarter mile from the house. Some days I'd go hours without seeing another person. That summer, the Keller farm came up on my route. Old man Keller had died that winter and his grandson Travis moved in from Omaha to run the place. Travis was maybe 30, seemed decent, one of those city people who romanticized farm life without understanding it. The Keller place was 160 acres, mostly corn. The farmhouse dated to the 1920s and the barn was even older, leaning east like it might fall over. There was something off about that property. I delivered there for years when old man Keller was alive. He'd never been friendly, never waved, let packages pile up on his porch. The locals didn't talk about the Kellers much, but when they did there was weird tension, like everybody knew something but nobody wanted to say it. 2 weeks after Travis moved in, he started plowing the back 40, this section on the north side that I'd never seen old man Keller touch. Always just sat overgrown with weeds, but Travis had gotten an old tractor running and was turning that soil. Weird that old man Keller never used it. Good soil out here is everything and leaving 40 acres fallow doesn't make sense. First strange thing was about a week after Travis started plowing. I pulled up around 10 in the morning and saw him out in the field on the tractor, not moving, just sitting there idling with Travis standing next to it staring at the ground. I watched for a minute, honked and waved, but he didn't react. Had 40 more stops, so I left his mail and drove on. Next day, same thing. This time I could see he'd dug up a section with a shovel. By the third day I walked out there. Travis was filthy, covered in dirt to his elbows, bloodshot eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "You okay?" I called from 20 feet away. He jumped like I'd shot him, spun around wild, took him a second to recognize me. "Yeah, I just found something weird," his voice hoarse. I walked closer. It was a hand, not skeletal, not decomposed. A hand sticking up from the dirt like someone reaching from below. Skin was grayish, almost waxy, but the details were perfect. Every line, every fingernail, even hair on the knuckles. "Call the sheriff," I asked. He shook his head. "It's not real, look." He touched it and his hand passed through like smoke. The hand stayed solid looking but had no substance. "I've been digging around it. There's no body, it just stops at the wrist, and there's more. I found 3 so far." He pointed and I saw 2 more spots. Each had another hand reaching up, one closed in a fist, one open with fingers spread, all gray and waxy, all insubstantial. Maybe stop digging. "Maybe there's a reason your grandfather never planted this field." Travis looked at me with something stubborn and crazy in his eyes. "These aren't real, some kind of optical illusion. Maybe the old man put them here as a joke. I'm not letting some prank keep me from using 40 acres of good farmland." I tried arguing, but he wouldn't listen. That night I asked around at the diner carefully, not mentioning names. Asked about the Keller property, why that land stayed unplanted. Got silence and changed subjects until this old-timer Frank pulled me aside. "You're asking about the back 40. Travis is plowing it, isn't he?" I nodded. Frank sighed. "Every few generations someone tries, usually takes 3-4 days before they quit. The hands show up, then other things. Old man Keller's father tried in the 40s, lost 2 hired men and a cousin. Keller tried when he was young. His wife left him over it. Whatever's buried there doesn't want disturbed." I asked what he meant by other things, but Frank wouldn't say. Just told me stay away from that property. Next week I watched Travis deteriorate. Every day out in that field digging up more hands. Dozens now, maybe hundreds, all reaching up through dirt in various poses. None solid, you could pass your hand through them, but they looked real. By day 5 I saw an arm to the elbow. Day 7 there was a face, just the face floating in dirt with eyes closed and mouth open. Travis stopped waving, stopped acknowledging me at all, out there dawn to dark, digging and digging. Week 2 he started staying overnight. I'd drive by evening and see work lamps, Travis digging by artificial light. Week 3 he stopped coming to the house. Mail piled up on the porch. The field looked like a nightmare. Hands and arms everywhere, faces floating and now full bodies. Human forms buried just below surface, preserved in that gray waxy substance. They looked like they were sleeping or frozen mid-movement, reaching upward, curled up. Some appeared to be screaming. In the center, Travis had dug a pit 10 feet across and 6 deep. I could see him down in it, still digging, throwing dirt over his shoulder. He lost 30 pounds, clothes were rags. That's when I saw the first real one. Dropping mail around sunset, and someone stood at the edge of Travis's property, just watching the house. I waved. They didn't wave back. I looked closer and my stomach went cold. It was one of the figures from the field. Same gray waxy appearance, same lack of substance in the wind, but this one was standing upright and moving. It turned its head to look at me, and even from 100 yards I could feel it seeing me. I got in my truck and drove away fast, called Sheriff Morrison, insisted he do something. He drove out with 2 deputies, found Travis in that pit unconscious from exhaustion and dehydration, hauled him to the hospital. I went with the sheriff next day to look at what Travis uncovered. Pit went down 8 feet to stone, carved stone, fitted blocks forming a chamber. Travis had broken through one block and you could see inside. The chamber was full of them, those gray figures, packed so tight you couldn't see the floor. Hundreds, maybe thousands, and they weren't still anymore. They were moving slowly, reaching upward toward the opening Travis made. Sheriff made calls. Within 3 days, people came from the state university, archaeologists, historians, people in suits who wouldn't say what agency. They documented everything, took samples, argued. In the end, they sealed it, poured concrete down into the pit, filled it in, brought clean soil to cover it. Made Travis sign papers never to talk about what he found, compensated him enough to sell and move back to Omaha. The back 40 was left alone with no trespassing signs all around. I asked one of the archaeologists what those figures were. She looked at me a long time. We don't know. The chamber is old, older than any Native American settlement in this region. Older than we thought permanent structures existed in North America. The figures aren't made of any material we can identify. Not solid, but they cast shadows. Appear organic, but don't decompose. They move when you're not looking. Whatever culture created them, the chamber was sealed deliberately by people who knew what they were doing. It should have stayed sealed. She said the state purchased the property, and that section would never be developed or farmed again. I kept my route and still drive past the Keller place every day. Property is empty, house boarded up, fields gone to seed. But sometimes early morning or late evening when the light is weird, I see them. Gray figures standing at the edges of the back 40, just standing there looking toward the road. More of them every year. I counted 5 the first year after they sealed the chamber. Last summer I counted 18. They don't leave the property, but they watch everyone who drives past. Sometimes at night I wake up thinking about that chamber full of figures, all slowly reaching upward, and I wonder if concrete and soil are really enough to keep them down. I wonder how long before someone decides that back 40 is too valuable to leave unused. And I think about what Travis told me when I visited him in the hospital before he left town. Said he could still feel them calling to him even after they sealed the chamber. Had dreams every night about going back and digging again. Said he knew he couldn't ever return to Minnesota because if he did, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from going back to that field. Because once you see them, once you uncover them, they know you're there, and they want out. This was back in October 2020, right in the middle of harvest season. My name is David Peterson. I was 41, been working as an agricultural equipment technician for 15 years, mostly Iowa and southern Wisconsin. Basically, I travel to farms fixing combines, tractors, anything mechanical that breaks down during planting or harvest. Good money but brutal hours, especially during harvest when every day counts and a broken machine costs farmers thousands. I'd get calls at 2 in the morning from desperate farmers, part of the job. That October I got a call around 9 at night from a farmer named Dale Hutchins. He had 400 acres of corn that needed to come off before forecasted rain, but his combine threw a belt and damaged internal components. Pretty worked up, said he tried fixing it but made it worse, needed me first thing in the morning. I told him I'd be there by 6 and he gave me directions about 40 miles outside Des Moines. Right before hanging up he said something weird. Don't come after dark. If you can't make it before sundown, wait till morning. Just don't come at night. I figured he meant the roads were bad or his driveway was hard to find in the dark. Didn't think much of it. Next morning I headed out before dawn with my truck loaded with parts. The Hutchins farm was way out there. Turn off the county road onto gravel and drive another 3 miles before you see buildings. Flat land everywhere, nothing but harvested cornfields and scattered farmhouses miles apart. Pulled up around 6:15, sun just coming up, and Dale was waiting by the barn. Looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Late 50s, weathered face, that look farmers get when they're worrying about money and whether they'll keep their land. Thank God you're here. Combines out in the north field. As we drove out to where the combine sat dead in partially harvested field, Dale kept checking mirrors and looking at the sky like he expected something. "We stop at sunset," he said flatly. "No matter what, even if weather's perfect and the machine's running, we stop when it gets dark." That was unusual. Harvest season, you run combines 24 hours if you can. Every hour counts. "Why's that?" Dale was quiet. "You'll see tonight if you're still here." "But you won't be. You'll have that machine fixed and be gone by 4, right?" I looked at the combine and knew that wasn't happening. The belt hadn't just broken, it shredded and wrapped around the cylinder, bending shafts and braking gears. 8-hour job minimum, maybe 10. "Dale, this is bad. I can fix it, but we're looking at most of the day. Can't guarantee I'll be done before dark." His face went pale. "Then you leave before sunset. Leave the work half done. Come back tomorrow. I'm serious." "You don't want to be out here after dark." I dealt with superstitious farmers before, people who wouldn't work on certain days or insisted on blessing their equipment, but this felt different. Dale wasn't being quirky or traditional. He was scared. "What happens after dark?" He looked at me long. "People come to harvest. They've been coming as long as anyone can remember. They harvest at night, and if you're in the fields when they're working, they'll harvest you too." I didn't know what to say. Dale saw my expression. "You think I'm crazy. Everyone does until they see it. Just promise you'll leave before sunset, 5:30 at the latest." I promised, mostly to make him feel better, and got to work. Dale headed back, said to radio if I needed anything. Work went as expected, slow and technical. By noon I'd made progress, but knew I wasn't finishing before dark. Around 2, Dale came back with sandwiches and coffee. "How's it looking?" I told him the truth, needed at least 3 more hours. "Then you're leaving at 5. I'll pay you for today, come back tomorrow, but you're not staying past sunset." We argued. I said I could finish tonight, get him back in field by morning, save him a whole day. He wouldn't budge. Finally I agreed I'd leave at 5:30, but in my head I was planning to stay. I'd worked plenty of night jobs by spotlight and flashlight. Around 4:30 I noticed something strange. Farm had been quiet all day, just me and tools and wind, but now I could hear engines in the distance, lots of them, coming from different directions. I climbed up on the combine to look and saw dust clouds rising from at least 4 different locations, like vehicles approaching on farm paths through the fields. Figured it was neighbors or Dale called family, but as sound got closer it didn't sound right. Farm equipment has low diesel rumble. These engines sounded higher pitched, grinding, and weren't coming from roads, coming across fields themselves through corn stubble. By 5 I could see them. 6 or 7 vehicles moving towards center of property, and they weren't any equipment I'd seen. Looked like combines, but proportions wrong, too tall, too narrow, components didn't make sense. Old, like 1950s vintage, but moved smoothly without bouncing. I grabbed radio to call Dale. Before I could, his voice came through. "David, you seeing them?" Voice tight. "Yeah, what are those?" "That's what I tried to tell you. They come every night during harvest. Work field sunset to sunrise. Get out right now. Drive to the house. Don't stop. Don't look directly. Just drive." Something about those machines made my skin crawl, getting closer, and I could see they weren't solid. Flickered like images on smoke, but cast shadows and tore up ground. Threw tools in truck and drove back. Machines converging on the north field where Dale's combine sat. Watched in mirror as they surrounded it and started working. Corn stubble going through headers, getting processed, but nothing coming out. No corn, no chaff, just taking everything, and it disappeared. Made it back and Dale was on porch. "Get inside. Don't go back out till sunrise." Inside, his wife, Martha, had coffee ready. Looked worn out, like this was routine, but never easier. "Should have left when he told you," she said. "Not angry, just tired." "How long has this been happening?" Dale poured coffee. "My grandfather bought this land in 1955. They were already here, tried everything. Sheriff, state police, even a priest. Nothing worked. Every night during harvest, sunset to sunrise, they come." Through the window I saw machines in distance, lights flickering. Moved in patterns, harvesting corn already cut, same ground again and again. "What are they harvesting if corn's already cut?" Martha and Dale exchanged looks. "We don't know," Martha said quietly, "but we know what happens if you're in fields when they're working." Dale's uncle, working late one October 1978, found his tractor next morning still running, tools laid out, but he was gone. Searched for weeks, dragged pond, checked every building, never found a trace. There have been others. Hired hands, neighbors who didn't believe, one state trooper. Anyone in fields after dark during harvest gets taken, don't know where, they don't come back. I watched machines work as sun dropped. Full dark now and there were more, at least 20 combines moving synchronized. Can't you just not plant, sell the land? Dale shook his head. Tried not planting in the 90s, figured if nothing to harvest they'd leave. They came anyway, went to neighbors' fields, took 3 people that season. Neighbors made clear we plant and harvest normal or they'd burn us out. So they plant every spring and harvest every fall, and every night during harvest these things come. The cost of this land, around 8 I went to window. One machine stopped 50 yards from house, facing us, lights on, engine idling, someone in the cab, a silhouette human shaped but too large in the operator's seat, not moving, just watching. Don't look at them, Martha said sharp. Don't make eye contact. They leave us alone if we don't acknowledge them. I stepped back but could still see it. Figure tilted its head curious, then slowly machine turned and went back to work. Didn't sleep that night. None of us did. Sat drinking coffee, listening to engines outside, that grinding noise that shouldn't exist. Around 3 I used bathroom upstairs, made mistake of looking out hall window. Machines everywhere now, dozens maybe hundreds, filling fields far as I could see. And between them, walking through stubble, were people. Things shaped like people, too tall, moved wrong, joints bending unnatural. I couldn't make out details, just silhouettes against machine lights, but there were a lot of them. I backed away, nearly ran downstairs. I saw people. Dale nodded. The operators, worse than machines, don't let them see you watching. We waited, hours like days. Around 5:30 sounds changed. Engines powering down, grinding fading. By 6, first light touching horizon, they were gone, vanished. I went outside with Dale once fully light. Fields looked normal, stubble and dirt, no sign of machines or operators, but when we walked to where I'd left Dale's combine, something different. The machine was fixed, completely fixed, belt replaced, all damaged components repaired, perfect working order, better than I could have done. They do that sometimes, Dale said quiet. Fix things, showing us they could help if they wanted, but they don't. Just want us to know they're in control. I left that morning, told Dale I couldn't finish, made up excuse. He paid me for full day even though I'd barely done anything, could see relief I wasn't asking more questions, never went back. Dale called over years, always during planting, asking if I'd service equipment, always said no. He stopped calling. Last I heard Hutchins' farm still running. Dale and Martha still there, still planting in spring and harvesting in fall, still staying inside after dark during October. Their son moved to Chicago, wouldn't take over the farm. Can't blame him. I still do agricultural repair but won't tea. 8 calls in central Iowa during harvest, and I've started asking farmers carefully if anything weird happens at night. You'd be surprised how many get quiet and change subject, or tell stories about machines that work themselves, crops that disappear, hired hands who go missing. Makes me wonder how much of Midwest is like that. How many farms have arrangements with things we don't understand. I think about those operators, 2 tall figures walking through fields. About where Dale's uncle went and all others who disappeared. And that those machines fixed Dale's combine, that they could help but choose to take instead. Whatever they are, whatever they're harvesting out there in dark, it's not corn.